All right. My name is Margaret Maynard-Reid. I'm an Android developer, currently building Android applications to showcase machine learning capability on the Microsoft Research Cognitive Services team. I'm also an organizer for GDG, Google Developer Group Seattle, and the Women Tech Makers Lead. Last year, I taught Android Application Development Certificate Program at the University of Washington in Seattle. And I love the Android community. In my spare time, I run study jams, meetups, DevFest, writing blogs, and speaking at conferences. So I'm very excited to be here today to talk about how to make Android apps with intelligence. The goal of my talks today is to share with you how to get started using machine learning in your apps without any knowledge in machine learning. And I'd like to share with you machine learning resources available to us and the importance of machine learning for every developer. And just a quick disclaimer, this is not a crash course on machine learning. As you know, as I said earlier, I'm an Android developer, not an expert in machine learning. That's what's so cool about my talk. In fact, as long as you know how to call that REST API, you're ready to get started making Android apps with intelligence. By the way, as I go through my slides, if you want to tweet, you can use my handle at MargaretMZ and hashtag AndroidDev or hashtag machine learning if you decide to tweet. And I've included the information on every single slide. So machine learning is everywhere. Google Home, Amazon Alexa, Microsoft Cortana, Pepper the Robot, and self-driving cars. And you will hear a lot about machine learning. Google's Tensor Flow makes music. IBM Watson creates movie trailer. And then Uber drivers are using the Microsoft Cognitive Services to verify they are the drivers. So why do we hear about machine learning so much these days? This is because of the significant breakthrough in machine learning in the recent years. And also, machine learning services are available to app developers now. So what is machine learning? It's a subset of artificial intelligence and the study of algorithms. And instead of us writing programming rules, we give machine data, and they will learn from the examples and experience and start to predict. I have included a video clip here from Google developers. Josh Gordon made these machine learning mini video recipes. And you can watch the episode 1 to explain to you the basic and the definition. This is the simplest example of a supervised learning. You create a model and you train a model, and then you use that machine learning model to predict. As I said earlier, machine learning is not new. But the exciting news is that now machine learning resources are available to average developers like you and me. There are many resources available to us, and here are a few options for you. And they vary in complexity. The first option is to use the Google Play services, which I will talk about. Today, Google Play services includes the Mobile Vision API. And then another very easy option is to use the ready-made APIs. These are powered by machine learning, and you can take advantage of them without the need to know all the details. Quite a few companies provide these services. Google, Microsoft, IBM, and Hewlett-Packard, etc., all provide these machine learning services. And then another option is that you can use an existing model and retrain it with your data. For example, later on, I'll go over the Microsoft Language Understanding Intelligence System, which uses a web UI. Another example is Google's Tensor Flow. an open source library for machine learning. For example, if you want to train a model to recognize your own images, you can start out with an existing model like Inception and train it with your own data. There's a collab I will mention later on called Tensor Flow for Poets that will teach you how to go about with that. Using Tensor Flow, you can also develop your own algorithms. So today my talk is going to focus on the first option, Mobile Vision API, and then the second option of making REST API calls. I will touch slightly on Microsoft LUIS and TensorFlow, but I will not topics of creating your own algorithms, which is out of scope for this talk. And you can explore that one day when you become an expert with machine learning. So now let's start with Mobile Vision API by using Google Play services. So the Google Mobile Vision API, August 2015, Google Play Services 7.A included the face and barcode detection. And then this year, a couple months ago in June, a new release of Google Play Services included the text API as well. I've included links to 3 collabs here for you to explore the Mobile Vision API for the face detector, the barcode detector, as well as the text recognizer. So these collabs, as you go through, you can also see the sample code as well as a sample app. So the Mobile Vision API, as you can see, I included a picture here. It can detect one or multiple faces. It does face detection, but not recognition. What's the difference between the two? Basically, it will detect the face in the image. However, it will not identify face 1, face 2, or this is Margaret or not Margaret. And then it can detect face from an image, a still image, or a video. I find that the Face API also works very well. The Google Face API works very well from different angles. It can also detect your like if you're winking or blinking or smiling. It can also detect the landmarks on your face, like where's your nose and your eyes, etc. And in this case, once your app detects that face, you can draw a rectangle to indicate that's where the face is. So to use the face detector, it's really easy. First, you will add the Mobile Vision Google Play services in your apps module, the build.gradle file. Then you create a face detector object. And before you use that detector, you make sure it's operational. And then you can use that to detect, in this case, an image. And then you can detect one face or multiple faces. Again, I've included the collab for you to look at the details later. What can you create using the Face API? As you can see, one of the sample apps that Google created is called the Googly Eye Android app. Basically, it's detecting where your eyes are, whether you're blinking or winking. And so this is just a toy example of what you can do with the Mobile Vision API. And as you can see, the code is very simple. You do not need to have any knowledge of machine learning. The Mobile Vision API can also do barcode detection. And it will do the detection in real time on the device, which means you don't need to have an internet connection and in any orientation. It can also detect the multiple barcode formats. I've included an example here. I basically took the piece of paper that I got from the AnDevCon, and you can see that the barcode is detected here. And if you go through the sample app on GitHub that's provided by Google, you can try it out. The Mobile Vision API detects face and barcode as well as text recognition. Again, just it will do the text detection in real time on device, and it will detect Latin-based languages such as French and English and German, etc. And it also recognizes text, the images, and the video streams. And this part is important because when I try out like the HP, they also have a machine learning API for text recognition. And when I tried that out, when there's image together with text, it was not doing a very good job of parsing out the text. But with the Google's mobile vision API, I find that it works out pretty well. You put image together with text, it does a good job of parsing out the text.
Can I detect the handwritten text? Handwritten text?
Handwritten? I think so. I didn't try it out, but I think it will do handwritten as well. But if it doesn't, you can use Tensor Flow.
Isn't that the base library they train it on? A set of numbers? So I would imagine.
Yeah, the Tensor Flow. Yeah, I think this will use, it does the handwritten one as well. And as you see that as I was moving around the phone, you see how sometimes it becomes one block as well. So you can set in the API to detect the one line or just one block at the text. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the mobile, I talked about the mobile vision API, which is part of the Google Play services. Now I'm going to talk about the second option of using the REST API calls, the machine learning services. So there are quite a few, so for these, you will use pre-trained models, and you do not, again, no need to have any machine learning knowledge. You just do the REST API calls, and quite a few of these companies, Google, Microsoft, IBM, and HP, all provide these services, and you can try out the APIs directly online from their website. So I'm going to show you a couple of them. So let's first take a look at the Google Cloud Vision API. Since I did not mirror my screen, it's going to be a little hard for me to see. I'm guessing this is okay. All right, so this is the Google one. So this is the site for the Google Cloud Vision API. You know, I suspect the mobile vision API is powered by this as well. But this is the cloud one that you can use. And you can try it out, how it works. So I have an image. And let's see. Drag and drop this image in here. And verify I'm not a robot. OK. And then you see the Cloud Vision API correctly detects that, classifies this as a cat. And you know, there are some other information, but you can also look at the JSON responses here. Okay, so that's the Google one. And the second one, let's see. I think that's the Microsoft one. Yeah, okay. So this is Microsoft Cognitive Services. I think if you click on here, you can see all of these cognitive services here. And I'm just showing you one, which is the Emotion API. And I'm not submitting any images or anything, but on the website, you can see there are some sample images there. Again, it detects the faces as well. And I can't see very well, but somewhere along here, it will give you the emotion, probably like surprise and happy, etc. With a confidence score here. So you can play with it. And then another one I want to show is HP. HP also has all these APIs that you can go through and try them out. And some of these companies you'll find they have pretty much the same thing, or sometimes one company will have a particular API that another company doesn't have. So for example, for this one, which one is the driver's license? This is the
License plate.
This one?
No, the second one is license plate.
This one? Oh, okay. So, you know, HP also allows you to try it out directly in the browser. That license plate? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so I can't see from here, but somewhere you can probably try it out that they will give you an image and you click on it. It will parse the data and recognize. Yeah, so I can't quite see from this view. All right, so those are the just a quick demo of the Google Vision API, the Microsoft Emotion API, and then the license plate API from HP. So to get started using one of those APIs I showed you, it's pretty simple, and they more or less it's about the same, whether you use one company or the other one. You need to get a API key, and then you put your API key. When you get that API key, usually it's by area. For example, if it's a vision, or if it's a speech, or license plate, and then you put that key in your Android app. Some of these APIs, they will give you a SDK, like a Android SDK, and if they do, you just download the SDK. But if they don't, you have to write your own code to do the REST API call. To call in the documentation, they'll give you an endpoint. You'll call the endpoint, and like I said, you will make your own REST API calls if they don't give you an SDK. So for the REST API calls, typically what happens is that from your mobile device, you will feed in some text and images or videos, and they have some endpoint here to give you to process. And they can be like vision or speech or language and text and translate API, etc. And then you get a response back, typically in JSON. Then you can use that JSON response to do something in your app, which I will explain later to give you an example, concrete example. So the Microsoft Vision API, as I said, it has computer vision, emotion, and face. So it can detect things such as the gender, your age, and your emotion, etc. So I create a sample vision app. Let me see if I can connect and show you real quick. So I'm trying to connect my device with a visor so that I can show you. So over here, let's see. Okay, so this is just a simple sample app. And we can, and I have not tried this one out yet. We can add an image. We can try to take a picture. There's some ads. So okay, a glass vase sitting on the table. It's closed. It detects as a vase because the way the glass is. And okay, and you can also see there are some tags down there, and the caption is basically a description of what it is, and some tags down there as well. So this one is using the Microsoft Vision API. Yes?
Is the confidence like a percent of what it thinks it is? Like it's at 0.56? So it's like 56% sure that?
Yeah, so if a high confidence is like 90 something, meaning that you're.
It's at 0.56, so is that like?
0.56 means that's not very confident.
Okay, but
Yeah.
is that like 0.56% or is it 56% or just?
Sorry, 56% probably, yeah. Yeah, so you will see as you get this JSON response back, sometimes they will do point something something. Sometimes they call it score, sometimes they call it the confidence, and then sometimes percentage. Okay, I want to do a demo of this app called the Mimicker Alarm. This is just it's a free app as well as open source. And see where my visor is. It's still there. So this is an example of one app is using 3 different APIs: computer vision, emotion, as well as speech. So I have an alarm, and I will set the alarm to be just a minute from now so that it will ring. And okay, I will try to express yourself one, and I hope it works. Okay, this alarm is going to ring, and after that, it's going to just keep ringing unless I do something to dismiss it. And that something, in this case, express myself, is using the emotion API. So I have to make an expression that matches the emotion that it's asking me, or else the alarm will just keep ringing, which is quite annoying. But if you want to get up, you think about it. 6 o'clock in the morning, the alarm goes off and asks you to make a very happy or surprised face. That will wake up your brain. So I'm still waiting for the alarm to go off. Okay, so the alarm is going off, and if I try to snooze it, it will still come back, trust me. So I try to dismiss it. Okay, so it said I look too neutral, okay? And I'm gonna just experiment. I'm gonna make a happy face instead. Okay, still, I'm not, it wants me to make a very disgusted face, so this is kind of hard to do. Okay, I might get stuck here like forever because I can't make that disgusted face. Okay. I look too happy. Well, I'm gonna just let the alarm go off again so that it asks me to do another expression. Sorry, this is hard. And then I made the app that it will not go away, it will just keep ringing. So it's not detecting that I'm making a surprise face. Okay. Okay, that's one difficult alarm. Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not stuck making expressions during this presentation. But try it out. It's pretty fun. You know, the other 2 options will be making you take an object of a particular color. It says blue and yellow, you have to hunt it down. And then another one is a tongue twister. You have to, you know, say that word actually matching the speech before the alarm dismisses. All right, so you know, as you recall, at the beginning I talked about Google Play Services Mobile Vision API. What I just went through is using the REST API calls. I talked about Google, IBM, and HP, and Microsoft. So now I'm going to switch gear and talk about, you know, getting a little harder, because the previous examples you don't need to know anything about machine learning. You just do REST API calls. This one is to train and to build machine learning models. And there are all these companies, again, they're providing these options for you to facilitate, for example, the Microsoft LUIS, which is the language understanding service, and Google's Tensor Flow, the open source library, machine learning library, and the Google Cloud machine learning platform, as well as Amazon's machine learning platform. So the Microsoft LUIS is uses a very easy web interface, and it uses a pre-built language understanding model. And you will deploy, you do some training, and then you deploy the model to a HTTP endpoint, which interprets the human language, and then you can use that endpoint to be in your mobile app using the JSON response. So here is an example. I am not sure if I can demo this just because I did not mirror my screen and I cannot see the screen that well, but I'll just walk you through. You can try it out later. So basically, you will go to this LUIS, which is language understanding site, and then you'll just create a new app. Call it, for example, we call it a weather app. And then you will create a intent. Sorry, you will actually create the entities first. You can create like a pre-built entity that's already built, for example, geography for location and the daytime. Or you can create your own. You can call it people or whatever. In this case, for a weather app, you probably don't need people, but we'll just have a location, like we have where and when. And I create an intent called the get weather. And then it will ask you to give an example utterance. So I will give it a sentence, what is the weather like today, in Seattle today? And then I will give two parameters. One is the geography parameter, and now I will use the type. I will create a parameter called where and corresponding to the geography type. And then another parameter called when, and then it will correspond to the date time type. And then after that, I need to train it with at least 5 utterances. And then I will give some variations, say what is the weather like in San Francisco this Sunday, what is the weather like in New York next Friday, etc. And then I will train it, and then I will publish an endpoint. So let me see if I can try find the site, at least to show you. Okay, so I think this is where it is. So if I click on, again, I can type the utterance here to train it. And is this publish or this publish? This publish? Okay, so if I click on publish, maybe I'm not in that app that I created before. Huh? This application? Okay, let me just go to the application, make sure I'm in the right one. And is there a weather one?
Right there.
This one, weather?
Weather app test or just weather app? This is weather app test.
Yeah, this is fine. So this is the publish button, right? Okay. Okay, so pretend I walked through all these previous steps, which I could not see without the mirror. But when I click on publishing, you'll see that when I type in a sentence, what is the weather? Retype. What is the weather like in New York today? Did I type it right? Okay. So when I do that, you will see there's an endpoint. You can also click on this. The nice thing about this is you can click on this, and it should give you the JSON already, and you will see somewhere it says when, and with the date, and then somewhere it says where with the city that I typed. And that is how the system actually understands the sentence that I'm talking about. But how does it understand is before I try to define these entities, like where and when, so that you can start to speak about get weather. And imagine you can create your own app called the get weather, and then you can use speech to text to say, what's the weather like in New York next Friday? It will convert that to text, and then you can send it to LUIS, and then we'll come back with this JSON response. And then your app can actually do something intelligent where you will take that parameter where or when, and then look up the information somewhere. If some of you actually played with Amazon Alexa and you're trying to train the skills, you also see some similarity where you have the defined intent and the parameters as well. Okay, so back to the slides. So using LUIS in your app, as I showed you, you created an app. And what you will do is you will add the key, which has you need to subscribe to key to LUIS. And then in that web interface I showed you somewhere, application settings, you can also find that ID. And you just put these two in your app because this is where, we generated that HTTP endpoint, right? But how do we know that is the endpoint we're using? Well, it's by your subscription key. Actually, it's by your application ID. But you need your subscription key to allow you to use the LUIS service. As I mentioned earlier, optionally, you can combine speech to text with LUIS and put that in your Android app. Okay, so what I just went through, as you can see, you use a pre-trained model. You have to create a bit of intent and parameters, etc. You will train your model with a couple of utterances, maybe 5 or 6. But it's still not that much work, but it's also pretty confined, what you can do. Now I'm going to talk about Google's Tensor Flow. So Tensor Flow is an open source library for machine learning. And this is the most popular machine learning library on GitHub. And the unique thing about TensorFlow is that it's both for the researcher, data scientists, and developers. And how many of you heard about TensorFlow? Okay, well, most of you. So I'll still play this video for those of you who don't know. I'm trying to see if the audio will work. Sorry, I'm going to pause it for a little bit. I need to turn the volume up so that you can actually see, that you can actually hear. Okay, I've included a link here for you. You can watch it later, just because we cannot really hear it. For Poets Code Lab? No one? Okay, good. So, good. Then I'll talk about it in a little bit. We're not going to walk through, given the limited time, we're not going to walk through that right now. But, so I've included a link here for you to try it out for TensorFlow. And I think this is probably the easiest code lab, actually, compared to other TensorFlow tutorials. The other tutorials, you actually have to read a lot about machine learning. For this one, what you do is that you will install and run the TensorFlow Docker image. And then you will basically, I'm summarizing the steps that you're going through. Then you will retrieve the images of different categories of flowers, such as dandelions, sunflowers, and tulips. And then you will retrain the final layer of Inception 3 with 500 to 4,000 images. You can pick. When you train it, you can define, you want to train it with however many images. And Inception is a huge image classification model with millions of parameters that can differentiate a large number of kinds of images. So once you retrain the final layer, and then you will use that retrained model to classify an image, whether it's a lily or sunflower or whatever, you'll just point it to an image. So I highly recommend that you go through this collab because this will really give you an idea or high-level idea of what you're doing with the machine learning model and you are training it with Python. So just go through this on your own. I've included the links here for you to try it out. And TensorFlow, the nice thing about TensorFlow is that it works on Android and iOS. And oh, by the way, I think it works on Windows as well, as of like 2 days ago. So I need to update this slide. So I will also show you, you remember earlier I showed you the Microsoft Vision One API. I showed you, I took a glass of water, right, and showed you. The problem with that is I had to make a REST API call, and I have to have internet connection. But with the TensorFlow, you do not need to have the internet connection. And let's try it out real quick. Again, I did not try it ahead of time. It will be kind of a surprise whether it works or not on that particular object. So the TensorFlow sample app made by Google. And I'm gonna just try it. Again, we don't need to take a picture. So as I'm moving around, I think it detected as glass sometimes. Yeah, like a water bottle. So it's pretty good. And this works offline. And this is a computer keyboard. Did you see the text on the top? So this is using TensorFlow. And it will run, again, I say on Android, iOS, as well as Windows. You can try it out. I've included the link to the GitHub here. By the way, I've given talks before where it's more technical talks about code. Today's talk, there's a lot of references and different companies, what they're trying to provide. And I do not represent anyone. I just share with you the resources available to the Android developers. So I talked about Microsoft Language Understanding Service. I talked about Google's TensorFlow. And I want to look at some other fun examples as well. Amazon's Alexa voice service. How many of you own Amazon Alexa? Yeah? Okay, a couple of you. I don't own one, but I've tried it before. And what I find the Amazon Alexa is so interesting is that, they really believe in that voice as the user interface. Right now we use the keyboard and we use our devices, the touch screen. But with the Amazon Alexa, it really relies on the user interface, which brings some challenges with design, right? But it's very nice that you're forced to use your voice as the interface. So when you design, you have to do some special considerations. The Amazon Alexa has a very strong developer community, and you can train Alexa by building these new skills. I've walked through a couple of these templates that they provided. For example, create like a trivia game or create like a flashcards. I've included a link here for you to try it out to create new skills. And I also included this link here, the Amazon Voice Service, create your own echo. So, actually, my earlier question is, do you have an echo or not? So you can actually create your own echo on Raspberry Pi, Linux, Mac, and Windows. So this is kind of new that on all of these platforms. I tried out creating the sample code and the project they provided. I created the echo on my own on the Raspberry Pi a couple months ago. However, at that moment, I could not trigger the service. So I have to push down a button on the keyboard and then say, okay, Alexa, what's the weather like today, etc., etc. But they've updated it to work with the different platform as well as using some third-party services to trigger that Alexa, and then you can speak your commands and your questions. So I encourage you to try it out, and it's really fun. And I'm gonna try it out myself on these other platforms. And then I also included the link here to access Alexa voice service from Android. When I tried out this a couple months ago, connecting with Raspberry Pi, I have to just work on Raspberry Pi. But they've also since also updated their the GitHub as well for you to use the companion Android app so you actually can create the Echo and then speak through that companion Android app. And another thing I want to mention is Pepper the Robot, program using Android Pepper the Robot. And how many of you heard of Pepper the Robot? If you've been to Google I/O this year, they actually had a session on Pepper the Robot. It's, I love the robots. I watched Astro Boy when I was growing up. And I never dreamed of that one day I can program robots. And you can program robots with Python, or you can, for Pepper, you can program it with Android. So Pepper the Robot is this one, Pepper the Robot. It has intelligence as well, which is powered by the IBM Watson. When I say intelligence, for example, you can create like a chat with the robot, back and forth. And to play with it on Android, you just download the Android plugin and SDK, and then you can just create an Android project, and then you will create a robot project structure, and then you're ready to program robots, Pepper the robots. I would say right now it's still a bit primitive, especially programming using Android on Pepper the robot, so it's still much easier using Python than using Android at the moment. But I expected maybe next year or in the future that they will have more capability in their Android SDK. No, I will submit the latest one to the conference, so you get the latest. All right, so that's Pepper the Robot. Isn't that exciting? Android and robots. I get to work with Pepper for a couple of weeks, which is really fun. All right, last thing is the Google AI experiment. So Google recently has launched a site called AI Experiments. I think that it's the same site that I think it's this one. Quickly drop down. It probably has the Chrome experiments and Android experiments as well. It's pretty neat. It showcases a couple projects, like for example, this quick draw. I don't know if you can hear or not. Now the audio is like completely off. But anyway, go check it out. But basically, you will draw something, and then that app will tell you, oh, it's a bear, or draw a bear, etc. And then it uses the vision, right? The vision API. Yeah, I wish my audio is a little better. So anyways, go check it out later. I've included a link if you haven't tried it yet. This is launched recently. So I'm going to close this now. Go back to my site. Okay, so I've included all these examples. We're getting close to closing of my talk today. There are some design considerations here. We can include all these various intelligence here, but think about it before you include this intelligence. Do you think your app really needs the intelligence, or are you including it just because it's cool? If it's just showcase a toy example, fine, make it cool. But if you're actually having some other business use cases, think about if you actually need that intelligence. Also, in choosing an API service, look at the ease of use. As some of the examples I talked about earlier, some examples you have to write your own code to do the REST API calls. Some of them, for example, the Google Play services, I find that's a really great example of mobile vision API where one API can do detection on face and barcode as well as text, which you don't have to worry about your performance, how many API calls you're doing, because the Google Play services already handle that for you. And look at pricing as well. A lot of times these API, this site, they were like, oh, free, you try it out. But then look at the fine print, how many API calls you call before they start charging you for how much. And a lot of these APIs, like I talk about vision, you will likely take a picture or get an image from your device, right? So think about getting permissions from your user, handle the permissions. And another big issue I find with intelligence, or putting so much intelligence in your app, is privacy. Because there's so many apps today, they're tracking your locations. And as you see earlier, some of these APIs, they can take a picture of my face, they know my emotion, they know my age and my gender, and they know everything about me. And also, a lot of times these pictures are being sent somewhere in the cloud, right? So be upfront with your user. How are you actually using their data and their images? So what's next after my talk? Well, I want to leave with you, a couple of things that there is a paradigm shift in software development today. As I said earlier, you hear about machine learning and artificial intelligence everywhere, which is no longer a field for data scientists. It's actually for everyone, for all developers or for non-developers. Everyone should learn about machine learning and artificial intelligence. So I encourage you to try out the machine learning APIs, try out Tensor Flow, and I've included the various code labs here, and try out that AI experiment site I showed you earlier, and study some machine learning basics, and build an app with intelligence. So thank you very much, and please keep in touch. I have also included some links here for you. There's a lot of links. If you're interested and serious about studying machine learning, I've included there. Okay, great.